Hey everyone, Melissa and Melissa here. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about a subject that is pretty close to Melissa's heart because she's recently had an experience with this. But thinking about how the chemicals in fragrances affect our bodies, affect our hormones, affect our immune systems. Sometimes we don't think about that, right? Especially, you just want things to smell good. Candles and things we put in our cars and perfumes we put on our body and lotions and, all the things. So we're going to kind of dig into this today, and Melissa's going to share her story that just happened recently, and we're going to kind of pick this apart so it makes it relevant for you. And so you have some really good takeaways around what do I need to be thinking about when I make choices around fragrances? And second, if something does happen, like what just happened for Melissa, then how can I really support my body in the best way possible? So take it away, girl.
Love that, Melissa. And forgive me, guys, I'm a little hoarse. So I want to preface, because I said to Melissa, we come to this with no judgment, right? Our whole thing is educating you guys, giving you easy takeaways. And I think it's always about when we know better, we can do better, right? And so, and I like long ago did not know better and doused myself in all sorts of different chemical
Me
perfume
too.
and was a frequent flyer at Bath and Body Works. I had like every fragrance they had at the time and all the crap that I'd put on my skin. And before I knew it, and I've learned so much over the years about what I put on my skin, and it's very important. The brand I partner with, we don't use any chemical fragrance or dyes. And I guess, through my journey with that, I kind of forget that people are still using these things. So I was recently exposed to some candles. And, the thing I want you to think about, you guys, there's like all these scented candles out in the world. And, particularly I'm going to kind of throw Bath and Body Works under the bus here. Sorry, but I'm going to do it because, I know you walk into that store and you're just hit with all these fragrances, right? And I mean, I haven't been in that store in decades. I can't imagine what would happen to my olfactory system at this point. But I know, like, even when I was younger, we'd go to the mall and you walk by Perfume Mania and I would like instantly get a headache, right? And so, and I know so many people that share that experience, right? Or even you go into the Yankee Candle store and like, after a few minutes, you start to just not feel good. And maybe at the time as a teenager, I'm not thinking anything about, made sense to me. Maybe the perfume, it was like the strong smells, but I was still putting other types of perfume on me. And so I was recently, in a confined space with several Bath and Body Works candles. And, the thing is, you guys, as I'm talking to the person who's burning up, her kids are having some constant colds and respiratory things, which, I think we have kind of just come to expect from little people that they're kind of constantly battling colds and stuff. But, I want you to step back and think, all right, are my kids sick pretty frequently? Am I burning these kind of things in my home? Because what I want you to really think about is not this lovely fragranced candle, is what's actually going into the air is these chemical dyes and perfumes, right? Because of course, a lot of these candles are also colored, because why wouldn't they be? And so what happened for me is it was 2 days of being exposed to these. And I was in them for a while, and it was during a cold weekend here. So windows were shut. So what was wild to me was the second day that I was leaving, my hair had actually absorbed the smell of the candles. And what it made me think of, you guys, which thank God, it's not legal here anymore, is, when I used to bartend and the cigarette smoke getting stuck in my hair, right? And, we can sit there and go, wow, that's really gross, but we're not thinking of it as gross when it's like a nice fragrance that's adhering to us, but it's still the same artificial thing. And so, what was pretty intense was that Sunday morning. So I'd come home, I ate dinner, I took all my herbs and stuff because I felt my throat being a little scratchy, my nose stuffy, drinking my detox tea, doing all my normal stuff. And I woke up violently throwing up the next morning. Nothing was coming up because it wasn't like a food response. It wasn't, my body was just trying to eject something.
Mhm.
So, and it was really unfortunate because it ate up a good portion of my day. And I was frustrated by that, but I was like, okay, whatever. So, I was able to get up, was drinking water. I went into my infrared sauna, was like, okay, I'm going to sweat this out. Like, I'm good. Thought I was good until, in fact, Tuesday night, I started to get a
Mm.
sore throat. And then sure enough, boom, by Friday night, I was into a full sinus infection. And so the reason I'm sharing this is, I don't place fault on anybody using these things, you guys, because again, I used to fully participate in this stuff. Um, but I want you to think about like, what am I burning into the air in my house? Or, and we all, I get it, you want things to smell nice and, you know, um, we'll talk about, I guess, some safer options too. But, I want you to think about like, okay, so I had this really violent response because I'm not exposed to this stuff anymore. But, I can speak to, having used crap like that for a long time and then having hormone issues that we're repairing and gut issues that we're repairing. And, we don't think about it. We don't think that like a candle's a problem or our hand lotion's a problem until we realize
Mm.
it's a problem, right? And
Mhm.
so, um, Melissa, I'm sure you can kind of expand upon why these things are so toxic to us. And then, like I said, we'll share some safe alternatives for you guys because we don't want you to think you can't, we want your house to smell lovely, but there's safe ways to do that. So, yeah, I mean, what do you see, Melissa, in terms of a practitioner on the hormone side of things with coming from these sort of fragrances and dyes too, I guess?
Yeah. So anything that isn't accepted by the body well creates an immune response of some sort, whether it's a response to the toxicity level, whether it's an actual immune system like inflammatory response, which one of the reasons I would suspect why your body just you were vomiting but nothing was coming out was there was just a level of toxicity that your body was trying to process and it was not happening, and it was almost like your body was going, get this out now, and that's the only way it could come up with at the moment to try to expel that from the body. And because it wasn't able to happen, it sat there. Your body was trying to work it through, but by the time exposure to other viruses, other bacteria potentially in that environment, or something that's still living in the body that was allowed to rise a little bit because the immune system was just fighting so hard, then you became susceptible to an infection, right? So we have to think about how our bodies react to this kind of exposure. For some people, it's not a thing, but for other people, it's major. So when we think about how our bodies respond, one of the very first systems in that response is your hormone system, because our body is delicately run by those hormones. So when you have something that causes a fight or flight response in the body, which is part of what we're talking about when we say the immune system gets triggered, right? Your adrenals are triggered, your thyroid is triggered. And so when we're thinking about, well, insulin is triggered, there's a lot of different things in the body that are triggered by that, right? It's your body trying to protect you. And when that is a sustained response, like you have, how do I say this very gently, but you're continuing to use or expose your body to whatever triggers that response in the body, it becomes something that creates imbalance. Like your thyroid and adrenals can't come back from that. They're always full out. Your immune system is always full out, and your body cannot sustain that level of activation forever. We're designed to be activated, your body deals with it, come back to center, or come back to balance, or whatever you want to say, to rest. But when that doesn't happen, that's when we start seeing issues like imbalances in the hormones, imbalances in the thyroid, imbalances in our sex hormones, imbalances in our immune system. That's where it starts, is when these triggers are coming in and our body never has the chance to go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that the way to kind of, I guess, apply that is if people are burning these things all the time, using these sort of things, what does that maybe look like, right? Is, kind of this constant exhaustion on your hormone system. Um, and I think again, and I know it's tough because the public is inundated with like, gosh, I mean, I know they used to be like, 3 for 24 or whatever. And then, it's got all these fragrances and oh my gosh, and these cute hand soaps and blah, blah, blah. But, it's figuring out how do I make better choices. Because, there are other ways. And we were just saying before we even got on, I mean, it's funny, you guys, I see ones even at Home Goods, that are made out of cleaner wax with essential oils. I know, my company releases them around Christmas, which I end up like stockpiling them so that I have them, because they're a clean option. And then oil diffusers, right? Essential oils, that's a great option, to create, a nice fragrance, but also a lot of them have a lot of therapeutic benefits and health benefits, right? So, but really thinking about like, and then also, I know like even just aerating your house in general. Like one of the things I thought of was like
open the windows.
The windows were just shut. And again, it was cold here, so I understand why, but just kind of everybody in one space with all these things. So it's just something to be, I think, thinking about, you guys, because and then in terms of your personal products, if you need cleaner options, I can absolutely help you. We don't think about our hand lotion, our body lotion,
deodorant.
It's 26 seconds from your skin to your bloodstream. And
literally.
And so, it's important to make sure that you're not using things with chemical fragrance and dyes, because that's going to cause another issue. Because like Melissa said, it's like as if you're constantly taxing the system. And I will say, I guess the remarkable thing for me, on one hand, I was like, wow, I guess that means I'm doing a good job in my day-to-day life, not exposing myself, because my body was like, what is this, right? It's like all the alarms are going.
Right.
So I was like, it was a good litmus test. I like to try to take what I can from these things. But also this awareness of like, man, like how many folks do I know that are still using these things, and how does that impact us? And, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I think in our culture, how many times I have a box in my basement of like, these candles that people give to me. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with this? And I feel terrible just junking it, but they're full of garbage, so I'm not going to use them. But sometimes I keep them, honestly, quite frankly, for like research purposes, to look at them and be like, what the heck is in this thing, and but I think too, like you said, even car air fresheners. I have a little tiny, Arvon sent it to me years ago. It's a little clip. It just has a little pad. You put the essential oil drops on it. I love that. We have diffusers at the dance studio. I mean, sometimes we have, the kids are sweating. It may not always smell like roses, but the diffusers are nice, and quite frankly keeps the air clean in there. And then got purifiers going too. But yeah, I just think there's all these other alternatives, you guys, and just being really mindful, like heavily scented hand soaps, these spray air fresheners, all of this stuff.
Body spray.
Yes, body spray. And these really have, and again, I've found some, our products smell lovely and don't have this junk, but I've found other clean brands where you can, there's actually, they release a couple really nice clean perfume companies out now, that's all they do. And And a lot of them, you can get little samples from them for not very much money and try it out, whatever. And sure, their fragrance is not going to last that long because, by the way, it shouldn't last like days upon days. That's not normal. So, but I think it's just, reminding yourself like of those things. And it's always about, I know we talk about this a lot, it's just like trying to do better, right?
Yeah. What are the little things?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think especially if you and your family have had a particularly difficult like respiratory winter, right? There have been a lot of viruses. Unfortunately, I know I've caught a few of them. But thinking about that, like what am I doing inside of my home to help minimize, I guess, the stress on my system, right?
Yeah. And thinking about your kids, right? Especially, they are inundated with so many things at school, right? And so many things, emotional things to stressor things, to viruses, to bacteria, to, sharing. How are you creating a space of rest and wellness for your kiddos at home?
Yeah. That's a great way to put it, to the rest piece, right? Like not having all these like things burning and going and whatever. And I mean, think about it, you guys. You go to a spa, and a lot of times they have like oils diffusing, right? Like I think like we all can think about, you walk in, it's like, like I know we have this detox line and it's got like grapefruit oil and lavender, like all these beautiful smells. And it's one of my favorite, like we have an oil that we made that is just the oils that we use for the scents. And I'm always like, man, that is like one of my favorite smells. And it's just like brings you right to like, you're in like a beautiful spa. And how relaxing that is, right? Like you don't walk in and there's like 900 candles going and it smells like, Christmas tree or whatever. Yeah. And, and just thinking about that because, there's so many beautiful fragrances in nature, right? Like, and again, I think it's just, exploring brands that are also doing the same. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just thinking about that, you guys, I guess, again, I've kind of been operating from a place of like, I'm just doing what I'm doing. And then, as this happened, I thought it's a good learning moment, I think, for people. But like you said, Melissa, like, what's the space that you're creating? And again, I was guilty of it. I know. And Melissa said also, I used to burn these
me
things
too.
and even think about it. Like, oh, it smells like Christmas, whatever. And gosh, my poor system. No wonder we're fixing it all now, right? But it's just something to think about, you guys. Particularly, I know thankfully here we're heading into like, it's been really mild. So I've had windows open and it's been nice and getting some fresh air in the house. But just thinking about like, what is this kind of environment you're providing for you and your family, and trying to help things can still smell nice but not be full of chemicals. We have, I think, more options now probably than we've ever had.
How would you feel about putting together just a quick little list for everyone to include with this video? Would that be easy for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like of some nicer options for folks.
Sure. Like some brands that you suggest.
Yeah, I found a really nice clean perfume company, you guys, a couple of them, because I've always like loved fragrance, right? Again, probably part of the large problem why we're where we are now. But so that was one of the hardest things at first, was like, I love a little perfume. It's like, so there are quite a few companies now. And we would love your input if you guys have found something to share.
Yes, please.
But definitely I would love to share some things with you folks, because I have a friend who makes homemade candles, and those are really nice and they burn nice and clean. So, there's a lot of good options for sure. And it really doesn't take a ton of looking anymore. And I know Melissa brought up even like cleaning stuff. Like I will share this story just real quick. My little Yorkie, my little 5-pounder. So when I first had gotten him, I was beginning my journey with all this. And he was covered in these lumps. And so brought him to the vet, and you know, at the time I had like a standard Western vet, which I don't now, but you know, they were like, it's probably cancer. So of course I come home, I'm devastated, right? I'm like beside
Oh,
myself, you know, here he is. He was
mm,
maybe like 3 pounds at the time, tiny little guy. And so I was moving, and when I moved was when I started using like a lot of vinegar and water to clean versus like
mhm.
cleaning products. Um, and had started really cutting out a lot of these things, and the lumps went away. And it was
Heavens.
wild because I was like, huh. And I remember like calling the vet and being like, the lumps went away. Of course, you know, no one's saying to me like, oh, what do you know? No one's connecting these dots for me. And again, I'm like a little newbie on this journey at that point. But you guys, like, one of my dogs passed last December at the age of 21. And I do not think it's a coincidence. The environment that he spent, thankfully, a good portion of his life in was a low toxin one. You know,
Mhm.
I don't really think it's realistic to say I'm going to be completely non-toxic because we're exposed to stuff, right? So, but we can do the best we can to be as
Mhm.
low toxin
Yeah,
as we can be.
right.
But I think it speaks volumes. And my 16-year-old still stands up on two legs like a little circus dog, and he hops around like a little bunny. And you know, no one realizes he's 16 because he still acts like a baby. And he for sure has benefited from my knowledge more so than the last one, right? And so
Mhm.
I just think it's something to think about, you guys, you know,
Mhm.
because it impacts all of us. And like you said, pets, kids, you know,
Yeah.
and if we're paying attention to it, and maybe this
Yeah.
helps folks to maybe pay attention a little more, but I'd be more than happy to put together a little list
Thank
for
you.
folks
That'd
to
be
check
awesome.
out. Um, so that's what we
Yeah.
got for you guys.
I love it. Thank you for sharing your story.
Of
And
course.
yeah, you guys, if you have some really um good ideas around some clean products, put them in the comments, because you know, the more choices we have, the more that we can kind of put this together for each other, the better it's going to make our lives, all of us. So thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your
Absolutely.
day.
Thank you guys. You enjoy your day.